Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk, this Tuesday edition of Focal Point on the AFR Talk Network. Got a lot of stuff still going on with immigration and with the Boston massacre Muslim bombing. And finally, it's interesting, finally, the mainstream media is admitting what you and I have known for days, that these men were motivated by religion. AP finally sent out a story last night. I'm out on my deck doing show prep, as I customarily do for a couple hours in the evening. And there's a story from the Associated Press. These men were motivated by their religion. Got a story from the New York Times somewhere here in the stack. I just printed it off before I came over. Let me see if I can find that. But the New York Times now writing that he was motivated by his Islamic extremism. And by the way, the Daily Mail over in London talked to the guy whose car they carjacked. Apparently he was Chinese. And they had such hatred for America, they let him go because he wasn't an American. Maybe you heard that before. But he said again, they let me go because I'm not an American. They had a hatred for America. And I've got another story in the stack. There was a specific hatred on his part, not only for America, but for Christians. And the thing that struck me is this: the coin finally dropped, because I had to ask myself the question, why is it that liberals are so protective of Islam? What is up with that? It was hard for me to understand. It was hard for me to put that together, because what Islam teaches and believes is absolutely, completely contrary to everything that secular fundamentalists in America believe. There is no freedom of speech in Islam. There is no freedom of assembly. There's no freedom to petition the government for the redress of grievances. Women are treated as chattel and private property that can be beaten at will. In fact, as you are aware, we've talked about this before, the Quran actually instructs husbands to beat their wives as a part of disciplining them and bringing them into compliance. You know, Christianity says to husbands, love your wives, give yourselves up for them as Christ gave himself up for the church. Islam says beat your wife into submission, literally. And the New Testament says love your wife into submission. That's a huge difference right there between Christianity and Islam. Don't let anybody lie to you about this multiculturalism swill and tell you that all religions are equal. All religions are the same. All religions are of equal worth and value. You know, the trauma doctors that dealt with these victims of the bombing, the two leading trauma doctors at the hospital where the victims were taken, in fact, the guys who were dealing with this Muslim that came in, tried to kill himself, shot himself in the neck and didn't succeed. So he's still alive. Apparently he's never going to be able to talk again. I mean, he shot himself right in the neck, so his ability, he has to answer questions in writing, so we may never hear from this guy again. But the trauma doctors that were ministering to this guy and the other victims, you know where they got their training on dealing with trauma and victims of bomb blast? They got that because they were from Israel. They gained their experience by treating Israelis because the Muslims in the Gaza Strip keep blowing Jews up. So they had plenty of experience in trauma. They'd seen it from their time in Israel because Muslims were blowing up Jews every day there. So they were able to deal with these tragedies. They knew what to do. They knew how to deal with the trauma. They knew how to deal with the injuries. And by the way, here's another thing. Do not think that all religions are the same. That multicultural, it's just garbage. It's swill, and it's designed to weaken us as a people and rob us of our pride in our Judeo-Christian heritage. This is a Judeo-Christian country. It is a Christian nation by heritage, value, and tradition. Don't let anybody tell you any different. It's the Judeo-Christian tradition, and in particular, it is the Protestant tradition that has made America the most prosperous, strongest, and freest nation in the world. If you read honest historians, they will talk about the Protestant, emphasis on the word Protestant, work ethic. This comes right out of Ephesians 4:29. Let him who steals steal no longer, but work with his own hands to take care of himself and have something to give to those who are in need. That is the Protestant work ethic. And that sense of responsibility, personal responsibility, individual responsibility, responsibility that a man has to work with his own hands, not be dependent on other people, not be dependent on government, but to work with his own hands, his own two hands, to provide for his own needs and to provide for the needs of the people who are dependent upon him. That is what built America. Now, you come in with another worldview, and what made America great, that begins to crumble. The values that made this the nation it is begin to weaken, and they begin to crumble. Now, here's the piece from ABC News, which says quite directly that the older brother in particular hated America, and he not only hated America, he hated Christians. The younger brother's telling those that are questioning, he's telling them this. Look, my brother was motivated by a hatred of America and a hatred of Christians. And that's when the coin dropped. Why is it that secular fundamentalists in America are so protective and supportive of Islam? Well, it's because they share something profound. They share a distaste for America as founded, and they share a contempt and a hatred for Christianity and for Christians. That's the bond that they have. They share this enmity, this hatred. Secular fundamentalists hate this country as it was founded. They hate it. They have a distaste for it. They're trying to dismantle it. President Obama hates this country as founded. That's why he's trying to transform it and make it into some kind of socialist, Marxist utopia, because he doesn't like America as it was founded. And Muslims don't either. They hate America. They hate America as founded. They have the same dislike and distaste, the same enmity toward America as it was founded that secular progressives do. And so that's the bond that they share. That is why the secular media is so protective of Islam. The reason is that they are their allies in the assault against Christianity and against America. Now, don't miss this, because I think this is absolutely central to understanding the dynamic that we are dealing with right now. The reason, and I'll just repeat myself here, the reason that secular fundamentalists, the secular media, the world of academia, the reason that it is so protective, always making excuses for Islam, always covering for Islam. We're seeing it right now. They're trying to say, hey, these guys were lone wolves. Can't draw any conclusion about Islam from these guys. They were fringes. They were extremists. They were out on their own. They were lunatic whack jobs acting on their own. They weren't connected to any larger terrorist organization. They were all by themselves. That's important for them to say, because if they're connected, and we know they're connected to larger terrorist efforts, that the older brother, and Janet Napolitano said today, yeah, we knew all about that. We knew about the older brother's trip to Russia, to Dagestan. We knew all about that. So she's admitting that they knew. I mean, Lindsey Graham was out there trying to provide some cover. Well, they had a typo. His name was spelled differently on the documents going out and coming in the country. That's why they missed him. Janet Napolitano says, no, we didn't miss him. We knew. We knew he'd been there. And we knew then apparently that the Russians had warned us, look, this guy is a powder keg. He's ready to blow. He met 6 times when he was here with jihadist radicals. And yet our authorities, Janet Napolitano on down, did what? They did bupkis. They did nothing. So the media, of course, their effort now is these guys just a one-off. These guys are lone wolves because they want to protect Islam. They're trying to protect the reputation of Islam. And they are trying to say, look, the younger brother, he's just a victim. He's just innocent. He's a doe-eyed. Look at him. Look, he's a child. This guy obviously was just manipulated and controlled by his older brother, and he's dead and gone. So it's easy to blame everything on him, and that's what they want to do, make excuses for the younger brother, treat him as a victim. The number of injuries now is up over 300. I don't know if you read that. Over 300 people now were injured in that bomb blast, and now they're trying to make him the 301st victim. He wasn't. Nobody put a gun to his head and made him set that bomb, that bag down right next to that 8-year-old boy. The younger brother, Dzhokhar, did that by himself. Now, here I want to cycle back to the main point I want to make in this segment, that this is why the left is so, that's why it's taken them 5 days to say this had anything to do with Islam. They finally are saying it because Dzhokhar is telling them. We were motivated by religious fervor, quote, end quote. That's a direct words from his lips. We were motivated to do what we did by religious fervor. So even the New York Times is out there today saying, okay, these guys were driven by Islam. So they're finally having to admit it because the guy's telling them. He's saying with words that come out of his own lips. But up to this point, up until last night, the media had been fiercely protective of Islam. Why? Because Islam is their ally in the assault on America and the assault on Christianity and the assault on the Judeo-Christian tradition and the assault on Judeo-Christian values. They are colleagues. They are fellow comrades in arms with Muslims. They both have the same objective, to destroy America as founded. And so it hit me. Well, that explains why they are absolutely so protective, and of Islam, and making excuses all over the place for the religion of Muhammad. And Ralph Peters, and this is where it ties into the immigration issue. I'll just mention this as we get close to the end of this segment. Ralph Peters has been a guest on this program. I wrote a nice piece, New York piece yesterday, the lessons of Boston. And lesson number 3 from Ralph Peters: our immigration system is one of terrorism's best allies. And by the way, I was on a conference call this morning with others that are deeply concerned about this immigration bill. And what we're discovering about this immigration bill, the Marco Rubio amnesty bill, is it actually loosens restrictions on immigration from troubled parts of the world. In other words, if this immigration bill goes through, we are going to get more refugees, more immigrants from places like Chechnya than we even do now. It's going to make things far worse. And this is what Ralph Peters says. Our immigration system is one of terrorism's best allies. Related to the last point, this is a case of just how idiotic a politically correct bureaucracy can be. The father of the Tsarnaev punks only had to declare himself an asylum seeker, afraid for his life in the Russian Federation, and our consular officials fell all over themselves to get him to America. But then he says, try to get into America if you're an educated, ambitious West European. Forget about it. But all he had to do was claim refugee status, and don't forget, his parents went right back. They moved right back to where they said, hey, we're afraid for our lives, we've got to come to America. And he went on a 6-month vacation to the place where he said, I'm so afraid for my life, I got to leave. Focal Point AFR Talk.